The velocity went from 97 to 96. It's over. The velocity is down. It's still fit.
All right, good morning, everyone. We're getting started. We'll call the April 27th, 2023 meeting to order. And before we begin, I'd like to give a message. This public meeting of the Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement is being conducted in person in the board's conference room at the board's offices on the 16th floor of 2 Penn Center. Pursuant to section 21-1503 of the Philadelphia Code, electronic recordings of this meeting may be made through Microsoft Teams conference technology and by an audio recording. An electronic recording will be made available to the public online at the board's website without charge within 10 days. Please note that you consent to such recording by attending, participating, or speaking at this meeting. Our first order of business is a motion to adopt the rules of order. The board is approved and used for our in-person public meetings that are electronically recorded. The purpose of this is to help ensure that accurate and complete audio or audiovisual recordings of the meeting occur to comply with the code requirements. Item 1, motion to adopt new procedures for today's meeting has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Excellent.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
Approved.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2, a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting was made and properly seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, a motion to approve 160 pension applications and 92 withdrawal applications has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
Approved.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. That moves us into section 4. 4A, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Richard Saribe has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
Approved.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4B, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Brian Costello was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
Approved.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
The motion carries 7-1. 4C, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for John Morris was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa?
Denied.
Marcia?
Denied.
Sherilyn? Denied. Paul? I'm sorry. Paul approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries 5-3. 4D, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Tabula Snell was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4E, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Christopher Sanford was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4F, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for John Duty was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
Approved.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approved.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4G, motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Robert Young was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Denied.
Marcia?
Denied.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries 5-3. 4H, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Carl Johnson was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries 7-1. 4I, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefit for Charles Clamara was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4J, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for James Thornton was made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. 4K, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Francis Whalen was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries 7-1. 4L, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Christopher Daltus was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Denied.
Marcia?
Denied.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Denied. And Carol?
Approved.
There was a tie for approvals for denials, and so as the chair, I'll vote to break the tie. And the motion fails 4-5. Section 5, 5A, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits beyond the 1-year deadline for Mark Twain was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Denied.
Marcia?
Denied.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Denied. And Carol?
Approved.
There was a tie 4-4, and as the chair, I will vote to break the tie, and I vote to deny. The motion fails 4-5. Section 6, 6A, a motion to approve the application to withdraw contributions for Vernon Mears was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to send this to hearing panel.
There was an alternate motion requested to send 6A to a hearing panel that was properly seconded by Paul. Any discussion on the revised motion? Hearing none, a motion to send case 6A to hearing panel was made and properly seconded. Any discussion? No discussion, we go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Charlotte? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
The revised motion carries unanimously. Section 7, 7A, a motion to approve the application for survivorship benefits for Langston Smith, the deceased, was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
Denied.
Vanessa?
Denied.
Marcia?
Denied.
Sherilyn? Denied. Roosevelt?
Deny.
Paul?
Deny.
Andrea? Denied. And Carol?
Denied.
The motion fails 0-8. Moves us into old business. And case 8A, a motion to approve the application for survivorship benefits regarding Wilbur Childs, the deceased, was made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously. Brings us to new business and the executive director.
Good morning. This goes to the quarterly education conference report. Correct me one of these yesterday. You see also a number of conferences. One coming up soon is the NCPERS annual conference and exhibit in New Orleans, May 21st and 24th. That was mentioned at a previous meeting, although it was never approved by the board for anyone to go. We do have people interested in going to that. So I don't know if anyone has a motion for that conference in addition to some of the other conferences coming up. The NCPERS Chief Officer Summit Conference. I think that's for CEOs and CIOs. It's possible that Chris or myself may want to attend that. So I just wanted to put that on the table. The NCPERS Public Pension Forum in Chicago, Illinois on August 20th to the 22nd. And Korea Global Summit July 13th through 21st. That's in Florida. Several of our trustees attended that in the past. So if the board wants to make a motion for those 4 educational conferences, and then if everyone wants to attend, that would be great.
Trustee or staff that wants to attend any 4 conferences.
Thank you.
Motion regarding the travel conferences was made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Vanessa? Approved. Marcia? Approved. Sherilyn? Approved. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Andrea? Approved. Carol?
Approved.
Motion carries unanimously.
A couple of other things, the medical panel RFP, we did get a response. Dr. Wyatt did respond to this RFP. He was the only response, Dr. Wyatt. So I assume the board would retain him. No, he's not retired. So his current contract runs through June, and then he decided this time to the RFP to retire the RFP. So he will be teamed with Joris, who we already have. So, just want to make you aware of that. There's really nothing for the board to do is the other respond. PAF, the multiplier for the PAF is $31.40. Again, the same criteria as last year, just a different multiplier. Money that is scheduled to be paid out at the end of June. The financial disclosure, this is just a reminder, I know that Jim reached out, financial disclosure is due May 1st, so they have seminars available, they have briefings available, they have facts on there, and then as a last resort, or first resort, well, Jim available.
Voice agrees.
You see the newsletter here, that's being mailed out in phases by the Revenue Department mailing to retirees. Jackie was helpful to circulate it to some current employees that still receive paychecks. If you would like a group of these or a batch of these to take back to reviews, you can also please let me know, and we would be glad to do that. We're working with the HR folks to take it back to their departments. Unlike the past, when everyone received a paper check, you didn't get this stuff in the envelope. I just think things are a lot different now. So we're making it out with the HR folks, and we'll also put it on our website, and we'll send it out electronically through the city email. We're working on that also. So it's nice because it has all the updated information, all the updated board members, all the trustees. Because since COVID, there has not been a paper newsletter, so it's good to get this information out there. I think our phone numbers have changed since COVID started, So it's good for people to have the updated information. We've got a lot of positive feedback. And I would also ask you to just, not because I wrote it with the assistance of others, but the executive director's update gives a nice review of all the progress that this fund has made over the last several years. And I think it's good to have as a reference if people ask you, well, what have you done for the fund? How has the fund improved? It's good to have a little bit of an outline. So that's, I think that's everything I have.
Any other new business? Okay. The litigation summary update.
The Commonwealth Court affirmed the trial court's decision affirming your determination in Welch, which has been bouncing around since 2018. So thank you to the appeals unit. And we have 7 cases in the ground, which is more than we've had.
Thank you all. A motion to adjourn. Good night. Okay, Carol.
Ellen, do you have an update on the legislative issues that we discussed last week?
Yes, as we've discussed previously, the board sets the assumed rate, but the text of the code, what the code directs in any given provision, whether the assumed rate is charged, that is a matter for collective bargaining. So the board certainly has the authority to change the assumed rate. The board does not have the authority short of without collectively bargaining to change this particular provision.
So you're saying that when we collectively bargain this section of code, we agree that members, regardless of whether union members or not, because that agreement affects non-union members and exempt as well. So
That's true
you're
for
saying
many
that
parts of the code.
that was negotiated by the union and that rate is set by the negotiation?
The rate
Well, will we
is-
charge back members to buy, purchase back their time? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The rate, which is the assumed rate, is set by the board, and the fact that that rate is charged in that provision is something that has to be collectively bargained.
So that's what the lawyer from law told you? Can she
Yes.
put that in writing to me, please? And tell me the code that it was negotiated under, because the union is not aware of this being negotiated. My union, I don't know about the other unions. So I would like that in writing, and I would like her to refer to the code that the part of the negotiation, the contract, that this is under this, is that.
It is that pension matters have to be collectively bargained. But I will let her know that.
Thank you.
So we bargained for that, and we get a rate, a lot of rates supersede the pension group. If we feel like we bargained for it. Because that's what it sounds like, if we get bargained for it, if we get a better rate, then our rate will supersede the pension group, so why do we get the pension?
Why do you need the pension code? The pension code is the plan.
It's not the answer you want. I mean, that's not the answer to your question. So what he's saying is that, and I guess that's my question, if the union negotiate a different rate than what the assumed rate of return for the buyback purchase, then that's the rate that we have to apply to people that's buying that time, is what he's asking.
Yes, assuming that it was codified, which I imagine that it would be.
And Ellen, since it sounds like the members have questions, it are but present to the academy. Such a.
Yeah, that would be, and can she, take the code that she,
I'm here for answer the questions.
We can talk about the best form to be able to respond to the questions, Carol, that you're Any other new business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn has been made and seconded, hearing no objections, carries unanimously, and we'll move into the current comment.
My first one will be.
It's a sunshine.
Ultimately, yes. It's the hall. Put your hand up.
Welcome.
Is this exciting? Always complains how boring school is.
That's true, there's a lot of questions, let him try.
Call them up.
Even though there's kids.
I know, right?
I think the certain time is there.
Oh, it's today. Today is the first day, right?
Yesterday was the most professional day.
Today is the day.
I think we should all, let's take our guests, don't worry.
I know they want it.
Everybody ready? I hate to break up the conversation. They call it the first comment. The first item is approval of the minutes
from March 23rd. Motion. Approved.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from March
It's
23rd.
been moved and properly seconded. Diana?
Solicitors allowed to sit right down at your spot.
I was fun sitting over there.
Right.
I didn't want to interrupt the plan.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
Approving the minutes.
Then make a
I
motion.
approve.
And so I will approve the.
Okay. Okay, that takes us into Vanessa. Martha?
Approved.
Somebody thought you weren't here, Nick. Roosevelt, approved. Paul, I approve. Carol. Motion carries. Plan update.
Morning. Just a couple quick updates and reminders. Annual review from Nationwide will be at the May meeting. We're also planning to have a first quarter investment update on the mutual funds at next meeting. And if you're a member of the plan, you should have received a notice that the Fidelity, the index fund, the growth fund will be added to the lineup beginning next month. And with that, I'll turn it to them.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. I want to start by saying Dina apologizes that she's not able to be here today. She had a family emergency that she had to take care of, so I'll be filling in for her, and hopefully doing the job that she can do.
We have full faith in Brad.
Give our prayers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as of the end of March, the City of Philadelphia 467 plan had total assets of $1,689,630,730. Total plan participants are 25,068. And I just wanted to quickly mention that that's the first time that the 457 plan has ever had more than 25,000 participant accounts. And, you know, one of the, I think all of you know that I've been around for a while. So I went back and looked at my notes, and just as a comparison point, the earliest note that I have was July of 2008. There was 13,216 participant accounts in 2008. Wow. So 25,000 now. It's just a direct result of the work of this board and pension staff and in educating the members the importance of preparing for the.
And you read it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Brad, back in that date, I'm fairly certain, since you just have one, there were more city employees also at that time. So the ratio is much, much higher.
Absolutely. So, great work by everyone, and, you know, the month of March was a great month, so I'll continue real quick. We had 281 new enrollments in the month of March, which was a very great month. There are 19,471 actively deferred participants. In March, we added 47 new enrollments to the PPA employees during the plan. The 401A plan had 944 participants with $2,318,050 in total assets. There were 1,597 participants utilizing the percentage deferral option, and 5,424 participants contributing to the Roth account. As far as the local office activity, March was, quite frankly, the most active month we've had, I think, ever since I've been around. We had 41 group events with 1,048 attendees during the month of March. Thank you to Marcia and the HR staff with doing the lunch and learn, which included almost 300 attendees. It also included the parking authority's open enrollment meetings, which is where most of those enrollments came from. There were 248 individual consultations, and 123 of those enrollments were included with the local retirement specialists. That will conclude if there are no other questions.
Do we have an update on the information about participation? I think we talked about it at the last meeting in terms of the participation levels by the various groups. Is that something we can work on?
Yeah, absolutely. We could.
Because that way we can try to focus our attention to the various groups since we have a hybrid plan. We just want to make sure that we increase the level of participation for new hires, because this is really important to them in terms of planning their future in retirement. So if we could just take a look at that, and then if the educational group could get together and perhaps talk about some goals that we want to set for how we want to proceed with regard to increasing the level of participation. That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so we should move to properly second to adjourn the discussion, and you are adjourned. We move to the first item in the investment committee is approval of the March 23 investment minutes. Motion. Second. Call the roll. Diana. Brian. Vanessa. Marcia. Nick. Isabel. Paul. And Carol. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. That takes us to the next regular RFP.
So, the RFP subcommittee met on April 13th, 2023, and that report to the subcommittee is included in the materials. Subcommittee consisted of Brian, Jackie, Roosevelt, and Nick. From the controller's office, the subcommittee reviewed the RFP responses, reviewed the staff report, we had a discussion, and the subcommittee unanimously recommended to retain Chiron. You see a brief one pager in there, kind of reviewing some of the attributes of all of the respondents. The subcommittee found and recommended Chiron includes the following. Number one, Chiron had extensive and very good expertise as an actuary. They are prominent on actuarial boards and work groups throughout the country, and they're well respected in the industry. Their expertise and their timeliness of work is exceptional, not just for the pension fund, but during negotiations, during budget season, if the administration makes requests for projections in order to do budget work, they don't say, well, we can give it to you in X amount of days. They say, when do you need it by? If the unions have used Chiron in the past to effective bargaining, they've been an objective disseminator of data and information in order to allow the unions and the city to negotiate in good faith and with the correct factual information concerning their pensions. They, we do have a mayoral transition coming up. A transition from one actuary to another is difficult in any circumstances. When we have, new administration coming in, many new city council members coming in, we often get a lot of questions during that period of time concerning pensions, and it would be a comfort for us to be able to have an actuary who has some historical, a lot of historical knowledge of our plan, is very good with the data and very good with the information. They were among the reasons that the subcommittee made the recommendation. I'm not sure if Roosevelt, Nick, Brian, or Jackie, or anything else they'd like to add, but that's really a good summary of what we talked about and what the subcommittee included in their recommendations.
Also.
Yeah, thank you. And I think they've always provided us really good service and give us really clear explanations of complex situations.
Yeah, I see no reason to change. You said it well. I said it in the subcommittee. I said now it's well documented in here and in the newspaper article this week. The pension fund is firing on all cylinders right now. Not perfect, but very, very strong. With the new administration, all these new faces to city council, we're going to feel some pressure over here. That could be a stabilizing force, if you will. It's going to be very important. So, I'll make the motion to retain Chiron as the actuary.
Second. Motion. Moved and properly seconded that we approve the recommendation to Chiron. Roll call. Diane?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approved.
Marcia?
Approved.
Nick? Isabel? Approved. Paul? Approved. And Carol?
Approved.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to the subcommittee. Great. Next item is private equity investment.
Thanks, Rob. My remarks will be extremely brief, and then I'll pass it over to Adele, Byrne, and Brett, who's here from Marquette. We also have partners from Dower, Long Satisfer, and another member of their team, Joe Haslett, who can present. Just at a high level, staff in Marquette are recommending a total commitment of $50 million split across two Dower equity funds. As a reminder, based on the asset allocation, which is reviewed annually, usually late in the third quarter, we're charged with recommending investments of 125 to 175 million total every year to meet our private equity pacing goals. This would be the first 50 million, if approved, of that allocation. Adele, Byrne, and the team have done a lot of work on this prior to the presentation. Pass it over to them, and obviously if you have questions at any point, don't hesitate to interrupt and ask.
Morning.
Morning.
Give us time this morning, myself, Adele, and Brett, with our commentary. Just want to highlight at a very high level some of the really important things that are brought forth in our reports. This is a new manager for the board to consider, and we're bringing here with a recommendation. However, Valor is very established. The company, as is mentioned in the reports, was founded by Antonio Gracias in 1995. After his days as initially he had founded his own private equity firm. After being an investment banker for Goldman Sachs, he had a very successful time in his initial seed firm. He established Valor in 2002. Now today, the firm has grown, expanded. There's now 84 professionals. They call themselves Valorians. They now have $14 billion underneath management. There are 8 funds, vintage funds. The net fee on these funds since inception is positive 25.7%, which is exceptional. There are 2 parts to this recommendation here. I just want to make sure that everyone understands. We're asking for or recommending a $50 million investment given back. There are 2 sleeves. The first sleeve would be $25 million invested into Fund 6, and also a $25 million investment into Value Opportunities Fund alongside it for a total of $50 million. Because of this size and the 2 investments, staff has been able to negotiate a fee structure which is very beneficial to the board to consider, which has been highlighted within our reports.
So is that fee structure relatively unique?
Yes. So it's something that has been negotiated and is unique and advantageous for us. So as a pension fund. So this fund, their investment tenet is growth oriented, they're technology focused. And now I'm going to turn it over to Adele to just highlight a couple of the investments they've made, performance, and then I'll let Brad.
Thank you, Bert, and good morning, everybody. So, as Brian mentioned, Valor Equity Partner is a minority-owned firm founded in 1995 by Antonio Garcia, and it is based in Chicago with 4 regional offices in Miami, San Francisco, New York, and Seattle. The company has a workforce of 84 personnel, including 2 investment professionals, including 3 members in the operations team. Valor structured its first vintage fund in 2003 with $120 million in commitment. It subsequently structured 8 vintage funds and currently has approximately $14.2 billion in asset under management. The firm targets high-profile companies with disruptive business models, differentiated products that have large addressable markets with potential for cross-border expansion. The portfolio of investment consists of high-profile technology companies and service providers such as Uber, DoorDash, Reddit, PayPal, Tesla, Misfit, and GoPuff, which is based right here in Fort Lauderdale. The firm is invested in more than 70 companies in North America, and they continue to expand its platform by heavily investing in research, operations, building sustainable infrastructure to support its founder's vision, as well as the company's strategic growth objective. The company has identified the following 4 attributes that it believes to provide a strategy with a significant competitive advantage. Number 1, building long-term relationships over many years with founders, entrepreneurs, and companies for potential partnership. And 2, targeting foreign traffic companies that are resilient across market cycles and have shown to benefit significantly from temporary market turbulence. And 3, maintaining a balanced portfolio of non-cyclical businesses, including high-performing companies. And number 4, providing continued support to boost operations and to maximize product capability and market share. The GP is seeking to raise $2 billion to $2.75 billion for Valor Equity Fund 6, $750 million to $1 billion for Valor Opportunity Fund. The fund has 10 years term and held its initial close in the first quarter of 2022, and the final closing is scheduled later this year in Q3. And it invests approximately in 2 new deals, size 25 to 75 million. Bernard mentioned staff negotiated significant fees on the Valor management by recommending 25 million in the Opportunity Fund, 25 million in the main fund. And of course, those details were highlighted in the staff report, page 6, explaining the overall cost to our fund with a $50 million commitment.
Bernard, just, Doug, you mentioned the first one was 120 million, and in the staff report,
Right.
you can see the increase in the size of the fund
gradually
as they go on. I have 2 questions. Number 1,
Sure.
the size of the fund being proposed is 2 to 2.75 billion, much higher than any of the prior funds.
Correct.
In the past, we've had concern, consultants have had concern with the fund growing too fast and not being able to make sufficient investments, looking around for investments that are not otherwise invested. Any concern here with the size, of the proposed size of the fund?
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, certainly not, because the manager currently has approximately 200 plus opportunities that are in the pipeline being under review. So I don't think there's any issues with the size of the raise. We expect that the manager will be able to successfully allocate this.
They'll be able to identify sufficient. And then the second question is Fund 6, and then there's the Value Opportunity Fund. It's not specifically a sidecar for Fund 6.
Right.
It seems like it's a different fund. Can you just generally say what the differences are between the 2?
Sure, absolutely. Normally, traditionally, we would set up a sidecar, a co-investment vehicle that would invest alongside just the fund that we were investing inside Fund 6. However, the Opportunities Fund is a standalone fund that they have that Valor has established that allows them to not only invest alongside the fund that we're investing in, Fund 6, but also the previous funds that they have, whether it be Fund 5 or Fund 4. And if I could just highlight or add a little to what Del had said, and I completely agree with what he said. Very good question. This fund manager is incredibly unique, Valor is, in terms of the way that they develop the companies that they are looking to source to do business. It's really kind of exceptional. So they establish, in this fund, Fund 6, they're going to allocate $150 million or 6%, whatever is greater, to invest in these smaller up-and-coming funds that they think have a lot of potential. I made an analogy about baseball. I don't want to talk sports, but it's like the difference between major league and minor leagues. This is the small companies that have immense potential. And a great point, Fran, that you made with this Opportunities Fund, it allows them to actually go back and look at some of these smaller funds that they initially seeded that are starting to really break out now, that need additional capital to get to the next level. And they're able to provide them with that, which has been their track record here which is why the 6 funds that are initially in Fund 6 are all organic, internally grown funds. Companies.
Even though we discussed this previously, it's not until today where I realized the tremendous potential of having that additional fund and the combined reduction in fees. It seems like a model that depending on performance,
Sure.
but a model, at least fee-wise and opportunity-wise, that we should probably pursue going forward.
I completely agree with you.
So let me ask you a question, let me ask you a question. Put that in the one on money, put that in. So, because, have we ever done this before, did 2 funds at one time?
It's, well,
So this is a new thing for us, because have we ever done 2 funds? at one time?
sidebars, yes. So we have established, I'm thinking of PPI, I'm thinking of EIV. We had done Capital Dynamics, where we had a main fund and then we had a sidecar vehicle. Some of the fund managers call it a top-up vehicle, so forth like that. It's essentially a sidecar. This fund, initially, when we were speaking with Valor, we had broached the subject of a co-investment vehicle, similar to what we had done before, and they said to us, well, sure, they could do that. However, they had this other fund that was available to us, the Opportunities Fund, and we should consider it. And that's what we were able to negotiate a reduced fee, and we think it's going to be very beneficial to us.
See the sole decision maker?
No. So, and they'll go through, we have Juan Salvatore here, he's a co-president, he's a partner. It initially founded by Mr. Gracias. And then there are 7 partners within the firm. By the way, also let me just mention that there are 84 people within this firm. 52% are women or minorities. This is an exceptional firm in terms of their actual, they also put their money where their beliefs are. They've donated $5.1 million since 2018 in local philanthropic, over 50 nonprofits on the road, and they also believe in community service. Mr. Joseph Haslett is officially a managing partner, former deputy comptroller of the city of New York. He's the chair of NAIC. Mr. Sabater is a Princeton grad, Army ROTC. He was appointed by the president to be on the board of trustees of West Point. So they dedicate their money and their time to help other people.
And you said they had several contracts under view. Do they have any commitments to the contract?
Those are companies that they are viewing to invest
It's not
in.
necessarily want to invest in.
So it depends, if they really meet the criteria for the funds that, they get for, they could potentially invest in those. Not all of them, of course, because, they have to select the right ones.
If I could just add, so they have a pool or a target list of 200 smaller firms in this accelerator program. They're not going to invest in all.
And they got through some screen already?
Oh, yeah, they're completely vetted. They're completely.
Yeah, I know that's true. I just want to know, did any of them look like they were going to have a commitment or they were thinking about doing into, not the one, but.
Yeah.
So you talk so fast.
No, sure. They certainly, once that they reach milestone in terms of viewing, actual companies and determining whether they're good fits for the fund, just don't have exact number as far as how many they're going to invest in. They're still being
So we, staff strongly recommends this investment to the board, and I'll turn it over to Brett to.
Yeah, no, and thank you guys. Good morning. From Valor Equity Partners, answering the question of, especially why now, just given the uncertain market environment and potential rising rates. I mean, one thing that made us comfortable with this investment is if you look at their previous track record, they've invested in some very challenging market cycles, especially going back to 2008, 2009, and were able to successfully navigate those environments, but find great and high quality companies. And the question was asked about the overall size of the fund, and I think especially now, just given the pullback in valuations and the skittishness of the overall capital markets, the opportunity set is maybe more immense than it's ever been for Valor Equity Partners of finding high quality companies They have with the Value Opportunities Fund, they have a stable of companies that they've already invested in and can continue to follow on and make investments. And additionally, we made a number of reference checks to other LPs who are other public pensions, endowments, foundations, and all of them came back, glowing high regard, not only as investors but individual partners for them as well. So overall, just reiterating, strong performance, strong firm, strong fund, and recommending to once again other market clients, including City of Philadelphia.
In your report, you mentioned a few risks. Can you just talk about how they mitigate those non-U.S. investments, non-control investments, and digital assets?
Yeah, so with that, those risks, are kind of especially in the minority side, minority investments, where you don't have control, that is inherent on the growth side. They're synonymous with growth equity. For Valor themselves, even though they're minority investors, they have an operations team that is closely involved in the day-to-day operations of that business. So while they may not be the largest investor, once again, they are able to be close to the board. They are on site, they're active, so they're mitigating that risk. Non-U.S. investors, they don't have a ton of non-U.S. investments, but at the same time, they are able to manage currency risks, via things such as hedging currency risks and so forth. And then digital assets, they have the ability via the documents to invest in digital assets. It's not an area that they're active in, but just open from a doc perspective, so we just want to state that in the report and get going.
Concerning the digital asset risks, we've talked a little bit about trying to include something to limit investment in digital assets. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we negotiated language in our sign letter that we'll get notice if the firm does invest in any digital assets.
Any questions or
One question I had is, one of the things the companies, I'm sorry.
Marcia Carroll's question,
Women and diverse team members, they kind of looped everyone together. So I'd like to understand the breakout in terms of diversity and separated from women. That's kind of one of the things. Oh, okay.
I had that, we had them as part of our standard due diligence, we had them fill out the group diversity matrix. They completed that, they sent it back to us, that's certainly valuable.
Okay.
And they're here themselves.
Yeah, but we have to put it here and make it easy to get them up first line, it will make the minority just a breakout.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I think women probably could be 40% and, okay.
It's a great question.
It's a double, it's a double.
We have all that, we have all.
Thank you.
agreement now?
I'll say agreement. Oh, my agreement on council.
Hello, welcome. Thank you very much. We're ready with you when I consider ready to go.
Certainly.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Just going to take a quick second. First of all, before I even begin, thank you, the board, and thank the team at the City of Philadelphia. Particularly thanks to Chris Bernard and Dell and the legal team for having patience and working with us. I'm here. My name is Joseph Hassett. I serve as managing director of the firm, primarily on investor relations in DEI. I am joined with Juan Salvatore, co-president of partners at the firm. He's my boss. Hopefully I do well in front of them.
So, because we're in a public forum and everything has to be up and up, no one is supposed to go. I can tell you from experience, it's not working.
He's getting kind now, you should see when you're not around. Nonetheless, we have.
And you got 20 minutes in pockets ticking.
We promised everybody 15 minutes, we're gonna have 5 minutes for questions.
Good.
Very simply, our goal today is to give you a full understanding of our strategy and our approach to investing. Our strategy, which we call operational growth, we think it's quite unique. A strategy where our 20-plus operations team that we have in-house execution that extracts value from companies, something that you're not going to see in many growth funds. We think that we're good at doing it, and through our presentation, we hope to convince you. I invite you to turn to page 4 in the presentation we supplied. Gets right to it. It's our mission. Our mission, our team, and our capital serve exceptional founders, entrepreneurs, and companies that are making the world a better place. Making the world a better place is core to what we believe as individuals, and we hope that our strategy shows that we can truly believe in ourselves. Turning to page 5, a snapshot of our company. We don't have a lot of time. We'll get a chance to talk about some of these companies which we believe are disruptive and making a difference in the world. You will hear more about it in the presentation. We invite further questions. This page. Transforming their industries. These are disruptive companies, and here's 2 snapshots of a couple of them. A couple of them are probably pretty recognizable. As you see on the left, it's obviously SpaceX, and also in the presentation of 2 companies which I think you know a little bit about, GoPuff and Misfits, which are in the area. Next page.
GoPuff actually started in the dorm dress.
That is good. The next page, a little bit more about who we are. Our firm was founded by Antonio Gracias. The thing that's interesting about the core of the founders is they all are entrepreneurs. Individuals who came together to actually develop a company. And when they got to the end of the journey, they enjoyed so much working together and learning the operational lessons they learned, they wanted to keep the band back together, keep the band together. That's why they actually started Valor. The firm was founded, the venture started in 1995. We have offices in Chicago, Miami, New York, and Seattle. When I joined Valor about 3.5 years ago, the firm was 40 individuals, it's now 84. We're a growing platform. A lot of that is our operation team, but a lot of it are great talented individuals. We hope to improve the relationship. You know, we a lot better. We're currently in the market with Fund 6, a $2 billion cover. We're happy to report that over $1.9 million has been raised so far. We're marching towards our hard cap, which is 2.7. We feel effectively empowers us to execute on our strategy. The overall platform of the firm, right, is $14.2 billion. That's inclusive of Balance Iron Ventures, which is a venture fund, which actually, believe it or not, helps us in the sourcing of the growth fund for companies. We'll explain that a little later as we move forward. Turning to page 8, here's the firm. Here are the pictures. You can have a bad shot of me on the right. But as I mentioned, we talked about the operations team, which is so core, right in the middle. That's a big distinction. That's like to page 9. You might have heard this, but we are a very diverse firm. 52% of the individuals in our firm that work every day are women and diverse members. If we believe in diversity is core to who we are, you'll see that in a couple more slides. It also represents who works at the firm.
What's the breakout?
Excuse me?
What's the breakout?
So it actually would probably skew more towards women. It's interesting, the ownership of the firm is diverse, right? Antonio is Latinx, I'm Latinx, and we have the other people. But on the professional, our CFO is a woman, we have managing directors are women, we have women on our operations team. We are very focused on pushing both up, and the way we're doing it in particular is through our associate program, right? One of the core attributes that we're focused on is how do we create a pipeline of talent all the way in. The reason diversity is important to us is actually the echo chamber effect. If you get 5 people who are identical, put them in the room, all you can hear is the same opinion from 5 people. And our business is to get as many thoughts as different as possible into the room so that we can better assess the possibility of any opportunity. So for us, diversity is not something that checks a box. For us, diversity is the best way to invest because it's the best way to get the broadest range of ideas into the conversation. And we've been doing this since day one. You know, from LGBTQ all the way to African American, Puerto Rican, et cetera. We're just looking for the best talent out there. And we hope our culture, because people know this about us, just makes people want to come to us. Because they know that they can be who they are in whatever way they want to be and have a home in our work.
Focusing on page 10.
And I said,
They had a question.
Thank you for this.
Yeah,
That is-
that was a question, right?
No, so what I was explaining was it is more towards women, the exact number, we'll get to you. Yeah.
So we can share that with you.
We'll show you the exact number.
The associate program.
Yeah, I would like to.
The associate program that you mentioned, do you really recruit among HBCUs or other institutions?
So we actually have a partnership with the NAIC, the National Association of Public Companies, where we actually have a fellowship program where every year we take on 2 individuals. We're looking to hopefully expand it even more with regard to that. And we partner with Twigo and a couple other organizations as relates to identifying talent in the pipeline. So yeah, we're very focused on it. We're trying to get better at it. More work to be done.
So since y'all have one of the items, that Go Puff is starting in Drexel, do you have a program in Drexel as well?
No, we do not have one. Actually, we should consider more programs, and we should talk to the Go Club team. Rafa, you're here. That's a great idea, actually, about what we can do.
And we'll get to the minute. NAIC, we actually have now expanded our relationship, our universities, or other HBCUs, as an introduction to try to create greater flow of individuals into the financial services industry. We actually have an initiative with NAIC, which Valor supports, where we're identifying individuals in non-traditional majors. You know, traditionally, you look at like finance majors all the time. Well, a lot of people who are math majors, who have other quantitative skills, we're orientating them and getting them to transition over time into MBA programs and more financial programs. Last 2 years, we did that with 30 individuals. What we did right now.
So we love that you work with Howard, but we're in Pennsylvania, so we have Cheney and Lincoln.
I know very much about Lincoln. I tell my cousins remind me of my mistakes and my choices.
Okay.
And so did Carol.
That's all good.
I got to think Brian something.
It's all good.
Right here.
Well, just in the spirit of this, we talk about diversity. We actually on page 10, it's actually an interesting fact. I learned while on the job. You know, we identify transformative entrepreneurs. So we're really making a difference. You see that in the portfolio. This is a snapshot. But we also have a lot of diverse, which is actually interesting for a fund in the marketplace. Here you compare our record of engagement with diverse women, diverse entrepreneurs. We're really going out there. Turning to page 11. Again, here's our theme. We want to make a positive difference. We try to make positive contributions, all about making the world a better place. That's who we are. Here's a snapshot of some of our companies and how we would aggregate or segregate them into certain sectors. How you rate them. Page 12. And again, my favorite slide, selfishly, is the contributions we make to the community. And this number is actually long because I believe we're doing a lot more of this. We actually give our time and our dollars to support the community. Juan just came off being on the board of the New America Alliance. He actually chairs the board of the Legacy Hill neighborhood house, one of the largest settlement houses in the country. I actually chair, I think before chair of the NAIC. I'm also the secretary to the board of a group called the Community Service Society of New York. One of the largest groups in New York dedicated to eradicating poverty and dealing with the underserved. We really believe it in our heart, and they're really good people to work with.
And what's important about this is, because a lot of people will show up at shows. We've been doing this for many years, right? Our involvement in the Athletic Cell, for example, my involvement there goes back probably 12, 14 years. NAIC with Joel and I are on the board. We helped the NAA. I was a founding member of My Brother's Keeper at the request of the White House. Why? Because it was important. And we need to do that. So helping at-risk Black and Latinx youth is a passion.
I mean, even we, where it says the Ryan Healthcare Network, that is a community health center network, which focuses on women in impoverished communities. And I began my relationship there in the 90s when I worked for a guy named David Harrison. He became governor, but he was a state senator. And we began funding them and helping them expand their networks from 1 to like 9. So the police there, it was from our heart. We're not just doing this, we have a meeting for that. We started this early in our life.
And an example of our thinking that actually brought our entrepreneurship together was Joe's idea during the worst moments of the pandemic, the Urban League.
Yes.
Talk about that.
So what we basically did was, we saw all these small businesses going down, and we knew it was only going to get worse. So what we did was, because of some of our early leadership in the Urban League, so we basically went, sat them down, and created a partnership with them, and they helped struggling businesses, right? And they did a multitude of services that helped save them, quite honestly. We were able to then take that concept, tweak it a little, to go to Chicago, where our home office is, and do it there as well. So again, this is just.
That's great. Have you ever done anything here?
No, we have not,
That's
but,
why we launched, that's why we launched.
but here, you know, and it's not a marketing. To do something, you want to have a nexus. So, and that we're getting to know your team very well. If they have ideas,
That's
you can
so
help. Dart's also right down. Happy to do it. And it's because you often, when you go in, you want to do it in a way that has nexus and relevance. We don't have all the information possible for us to have all the information for all the citizens in this country, right? However, what you will find in us is someone that is open to the idea and open to working with you guys, with people that have information and understand need approach us, because we want to serve.
The only problem is if you tell us to do it and we do it, you're going to see us a lot. But sooner or later, you're going to try to deal with us. So we're happy to
As
talk
long
to
as you're
you.
doing that, in return for good, we won't get.
Deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, following up on what Rob said, you worked with the staff, but I don't know how familiar you are with the board. You have the finance director, the city treasurer, city council president, representative, the city solicitor, the representative of each of the major four unions here, personnel director, managing director, right? So you have every possible entity of city government involved here, and each of them know intimately the needs of the city. So it is a good group for you to work with, either through staff or otherwise.
No, I do it myself because I have 20 years service working in the government, roughly in New York. He knows. For 8 years, I was in the New York City Controller's office. I ran the pension fund. I met so many people who were different chairs that connected to the board. So I have a passion right with my community stuff. But again, you get sick of me. So I would collect appropriate information and I would love to get on a call and do something. Talk about it, get some ideas. There's one thing that Juan and the managing partners are serious about, and they dig in. That's why I tell you the number they show, get 5.1, I think it's a lot more than that. Whenever Antonio, for example, runs into somebody who has an idea, he always wants to jump in and help.
I mean, we can do funny stories, but they're great stories. So Antonio, we were invited by the Obama White House to attend the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And they asked us to bring in Cuban entrepreneurs to the US. So it just happened to be brought up to the entrepreneur. Big deal at the time. While at the Entrepreneurship Summit, Antonio ran into a young woman from India who was setting up a business to help women protect themselves as they were walking through the streets of large cities in India because of assault, a problem in India. Antonio then decides that he's going to help fund that business personally, right? So he now funds the business. We have now funded the launch of that business in India. And as a result, provided this app writ large. And you never know how you can have an impact. It's all about how you engage people.
Yeah, we should have a call and just figure out the things that we can figure out. Because there's stuff that we do in other places might be able to duplicate, right? You know, there's Philadelphia Urban League here. Maybe there's something that they're doing with the programs to figure that out. Then bring their,
We should definitely follow, but we should probably let you get back to your.
So what I like to do now is turn it over to Mr. Salvatore.
You know, we're living this stereotype here. So I am Puerto Rican, as I said, and I always joke about us Puerto Ricans. We say goodbye and never leave. We might be here for a while. So look, our operational growth investment strategy is very simple. What we try to do is build information advantages, just like you with us, plus with everybody else. We start early dialogues with companies in order to get to know them, see if they actually do that, which they say they're going to do, build long-term durations, and as a result of that, be able to gauge the performance. After that, one of the reasons we've been able to navigate what is really volatile environment very well is we look for companies that do well in difficult environments, in volatile environments. SpaceX is a great example of that. But the fact of the matter is we're looking for great management teams. This is why it doesn't matter how you look, we're just looking for if you're great. We're looking for great management teams. We're looking for products that sell, because at the end of the day, we build value by having a great product. We want the products to be able to generate really attractive returns. In other words, you have to sell it for a price that makes money. And then what you make money has to be enough money. I always say it's easy to give away a free good. It's more interesting when people are willing to pay for the good because the product means something to them. And you want to be able to see sustained growth over time. And then what we do is these companies scale and grow is provide them more operational support. We go in and we do the work. We are known for being the firm that actually helped Tesla get off the ground. And we did it by supporting Elon Musk. It was a great privilege to do it. Now he's really, he in many ways doesn't need our help. But the fact is he cannot do everything himself. So the fact that you can have someone who can come in and help you accelerate in areas where you can make a difference to them, given the core skills that we have, makes a difference. That gives us more information about the company, because now we're in the company and we use that information to then build our position in the company further. And then we try to build balanced portfolios. Next page. So we have a team. Ultimately, what you'll see is that we're great at lean. In other words, throughput constraints. How do we make things go through faster? It's obviously something I should be applying to myself right now as I speak. And then you look at our operations team at work. Why is this important? Because people actually don't believe that you actually go into companies and work what we do. And you'll see here, our Sandra team, during the pandemic, we actually had people cleaning hotel rooms. And the reason we were cleaning hotel rooms is because Sandra needed to figure out how to get the rooms back in the market faster. And the only way you can get a room back in the market faster is by cleaning the hotel room really fast, but cleaning it well. So the only way we could give it back is by actually cleaning the hotel rooms. So three of our colleagues went and spent a month cleaning hotel rooms. That is the level of work we're willing to do. Next page. And as a result, we have been able to do something that we think is notable, which is achieve consistent, strong performance across cycles. You'll see in Fund 2, it's a 5x. Fund 3 is a 3x. Fund 4 is over a 3x. DSB is a venture fund, which doesn't qualify here as much. Fund 5 is 1.6, which is a younger fund, but it's on its way to a 3x or better. We compound at a rate growth of over 25%. That is our goal. And if you turn to the next page, you'll see that we have outperforming markets as a result. And it is important to remember, we do not use debt, so the returns here are being driven because the companies are performing. In other words, they're growing in revenue, they're growing in gross profits, they're growing in what they are selling. As a result, they're creating value. Next page. Here's our fund 6 portfolio. Okay, you'll notice that the largest investment we have is SpaceX. We can have a long conversation at different meetings, so I want to make sure I make time for that on SpaceX. But it's a young fund, and then you're also investing in the opportunity fund if approved by you. And that fund has these assets. Again, SpaceX is a much more distributed. What is the opportunity fund? So what we do is we take our best names across our portfolio and they do later rounds. In other words, if they want to raise money again, we give the opportunity fund an opportunity to participate in that. So you're getting exposure to more mature companies in later rounds. And the idea here is to build a robust portfolio of these high-performing names that will go to markets faster than our core growth funds, simply because they're closer to that point where liquidity becomes an alternative. That's right. And, you know, this last page, page 20, is the fees. You'll notice the fee structure here. This is actually a unique accommodation for us, and we're doing it because we want to build a relationship with you. So this is why this fee structure is as it is. Okay?
Yeah. On page
yes, sir.
18, it looks like the one risk is we're heavily reliant on this small group of companies. So, and I guess particularly SpaceX. So it probably does make sense to talk a little bit about that. And,
Yeah, we're building out that portfolio.
This portfolio will end up having around 25 companies.
okay,
Okay, but your question is still incredibly appropriate. Okay, it will have 25 companies. You should expect that 5 or 6 of them will be driving 40% of the capital invested. But it will have a broader number of companies because what we try to do is build a farm team, right? Like in baseball. Get to know the players, single A, double A, triple A ball, and elevate them up.
that's what Burn took them, and maybe we might.
I don't know. You know? I can tell you how it was at Puerto Rico, beat the Dominican Republic, but lost to Mexico. But, I know, but.
So I guess to use that analogy, we get this roster that we have to invest or.
No, the way this works is you give us trust, basically. It's a blind pool structure, so you look at our prior performance, you see what we have done in the past, and then you ask yourself, can they repeat that which they did in the past? You look at the attributes of those companies, you give us the capital, and then we build a new portfolio.
Like we've done before, that's what we'll show you.
But because everything has a nuance,
Going together.
in the opportunity fund, you have actually a much more developed roster, so there you actually have a sense of what it is. SpaceX is a great company.
Carol said it does.
Well, I do another question.
You can ask some questions.
Yeah.
You can ask some questions. Carol said it's okay.
Can you talk a little bit about your process? You mentioned it really quickly. Can you talk about, how you go through your pipeline? And
Sure. So at any one time, we're tracking around 200 companies. Okay, and a lot of people will give you much bigger numbers. We could do too, but it's really 200 companies. And what we try to do is get to know those people. We either might make a small investment in the company, $1 million or $2 million, just to get to know them. Why is that? Because what we're trying to figure out is people do actually what they say they're going to do. As the company then evolves, and we see the company doing the next capital raise, because we're growing. What does that mean? These companies are scaling out and they need equity, cash to grow. As these companies start to scale out, we then determine whether or not they've actually performed as they said they would. Is the product performing as we expected? Is the product something that people need? Is the product priced accordingly? Does it generate enough cash as a result of its set? And then for those that we start feeling comfortable that they meet all of these requirements, we'll write a check of $25 to $50 million. At that point, we typically go on the board of the companies. As entrepreneurs, I'm an entrepreneur. You want to be active. Why? Because we're not done. At that point, what we're doing is we're now assessing, is it accelerating? Is it continuing? Our operations team optimally goes in. Now, why we do that is because we want to help them out, but we also want to get information back. So we now use all that information, and for the absolute best names, what we then do is put 25, 50, or $100 million more. So that our portfolio ends up having this pyramid effect where the capital is deployed in the majority in the absolute best names, but you have a farm team of companies below it from which you select. And what that does is it gives you visibility, because at any one time your team can say, hey, how is GoPub doing? And we'll set up a team. We have a lot of materials. We're on the board of GoPub. In fact, my partner John is the lead independent director of GoPub. We'll take out the projections, we'll take out the board budget, we'll show you how it's doing, we'll show you the unit economics, we'll show you the operational detail, and we'll share that with you, and that increases your confidence that you know the underlying attributes of value of the company's up.
So you're getting in early.
Early and built.
With not a lot of risk.
Exactly.
And as you get more and more comfortable.
Roger that. Said better than me.
Is there any concern, it's not important doing it, but can you explain why you do not have a concern about the increase in the amount of this fund to 2.75 billion versus the size of the other funds, and your ability to find investments?
That's a great question. So if you notice, we're actually going for it, but the cover is true. You're right, the hard cap is 2.75. The prior fund was 1.7 billion. So when you look at the opportunities to provide additional capital to these companies, it's great. If you look at the opportunity fund, it's roughly $500 million. So you know from the opportunity fund and our prior fund, you have $2.2 billion already. We've already funded that kind of opportunity, right? That's already happened. And in these accelerating companies, we have the opportunity to put in more capital. And typically what we do is we seed it to others because we're capped out. And what we'd like to do is not seed it to others and actually take a larger share. So you take misfit markets. Our position in misfit markets is actually $83, $85 million. In a perfect world, that would have been $175 million.
You still see room for growth in those.
Well, in the new ones that we're coming up with, right? Not necessarily. Cannot go to the past. The past has happened, but in the future, using the same model, yes, I do. No, thank you, sir.
Are there other questions?
We're at your service if you ever have.
We will schedule that call.
And I will definitely ask about Drexel. It's a great idea. The trip idea with Drexel is very cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? I think you said you have the, what?
I wish we spent more time on the numbers. We didn't get into the numbers much yet. I appreciate their service. I do. And it's important to this board, it's critical. But I wish we spent more time. There's a couple things. I mean, this fund is going to grow their AUM by about 27%. Two funds combined in one shot. We noted it, so I don't want to beat it up. That's a pretty big jump. They've never done something this big before. That's concerning, but I mean, if you look at their net IRR, it's pretty significant. But then the gap between the gross and the net seems to be getting bigger and bigger, so their fees must be going up too, but I think our fee structure is there. That's all right.
It's required, moving money into the more mature companies that they've already invested in, kind of, is the risky.
Their process is really interesting.
It's an interesting hybrid approach.
I make the motion to adopt staff's recommendation to invest $50 million in these two funds.
There's a second. We move to properly second. This is full roll. Diana? Brian? Vanessa? Marcia? Nick? Approved. Roosevelt? Approved. Paul? I approve. Carol? Motion carries.
You get the breakdown.
That's actually. Council.
Yes.
Yes.
Ron, I had asked that question. You know, I asked about what that is originally here before you.
Fran hit it. I was gonna break it up, Fran. I don't want to be.
He was all over that too. He's not only right.
Response to the questions that Carol and Marcia brought up, of this firm, 29% of the firm is female, 35.3% are persons of color. When you break that down further, of the females that are in the firm, 34% of those females are persons of color, 26% of them. Send them an email to do that. That's the breakdown.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Bernie, so in relation, I know we passed the motion, but this to be clear, in relation to the question that Brian was asking, we don't have no concern over it being risky, like. I know we already made the motion to what this would be, because there's someone that I was saying too, like.
So if I can speak very candidly. So
I'll
be very candid.
Go ahead.
So Adele and I, doing our due diligence, were invited to attend a number of meetings that were very interesting. We participated in a conference call with the CFO of SpaceX, even though we're not a member of the fund yet. They also brought their partner in, who is the chief partner that is that part of that operations team with SpaceX. And he flew in from Chicago, and as I alluded to with Mr. Fielli, he brought in the laptop. That is a special laptop that's not connected to the internet like a normal laptop. It's unhackable. And we went through some interesting things that they were discussing that they're working on. So I don't want to, that's non-public, you know, in a generic manner. They're on the cutting edge, working on things that are truly outstanding, and it's a.
Just so you know, it's public.
Wow.
The answer is you feel comfortable. with
I feel
that.
very comfortable. I feel very comfortable.
Okay, no, for.
And I'll,
Okay.
at
We should-
a high level, I think to directly answer your question, Carol, without going into specific investments. Whereas other funds that we've seen or reviewed over the last couple of years that have difficulty fundraising environment, this fund has not. And I don't believe it's because they're asset gatherers, which is a legitimate concern to both of your points. I think it's because other folks, other institutional investors, even believe that they have the ability to manage the account. So it is a concern, I acknowledge it, but we feel comfortable given our review and what we've seen and talked about other.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Want to take that report?
And thank you for that. We'll start with the review that was requested for Brandywine, specific to the benchmarking, their overall process. So Tyrone and Kwaku want to walk through that. Both staff and Marquette drafted memos, largely reaching the same conclusions, but I'll let these two gentlemen kind of walk through at a high level their thoughts on Brandywine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Brandywine is probably one of the most complex strategies we have in the portfolio today. The world government bond being a very vast industry with a lot of different moving parts. Beyond
Right behind five.
Oh, right behind the number.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, right in front of five, right in front of five, say five.
Okay, all right, here we go.
You want to do some right here? All right, thank you.
Brandywine is one of our most complex strategies in the portfolio. The world government bond universe being as vast as it is, with a lot of different moving parts. Our other strategies where they more or less focus on interest rates. This strategy has to not only focus on interest rates, but has to focus on commodity prices, has to focus on geopolitical events, and also have to focus on energy. So it's very vast. Now, when we look at Brandywine as compared to benchmark, we look at what we own as opposed to what we don't own. Now, Brandywine being an active manager, we don't want them to just match the benchmark. We expect them to beat the benchmark. So they need to take a position in the global bond universe. They need to take a position. And that's exactly what they do. If you look at our geographical chart on page 2, as of 3/31/23, now, obviously, we want to have a strong position in the United States. But as you can see, Brandywine has no position in Japan, no position in the UK. They have their other at 41.91%, but that's mostly Latin America. So when you look at the estimates from the World Bank and other agencies who make estimates on what the annual growth of any given country would be, then they possibly make their selection based on that. And with all the moving parts going, this is probably one of the only strategies that rotate their investments, whereas our other strategies, for the most part, continue on this strategy. They rotate their investments from one region to another. The benchmark is the most widely used benchmark. The World Government Bond Index is the most widely used benchmark in the industry. And it comprises over 20 countries' sovereign debt denominated in various currencies that have a 30-year history available. And they use this because of its concentration in sovereign debt, which we absolutely agree with.
Yeah, I concur with everything that Tyrone just said. So Brandywine, this is a global opportunistic fixed income portfolio. The term opportunistic can make some folks queasy, but this is an investment grade portfolio. So it has an average credit quality of AA minus. Again, meaning that it's very liquid, very transparent. But to Tyrone's point, this portfolio can deviate pretty significantly from the benchmark. A lot of currency exposures, and it's a pretty concentrated portfolio. So it's approximately 41 names, versus the 1,500 in the benchmark. So at any given point in time, we can see tracking error relative to the index, and tracking error is basically a fancy term to say deviation, right? So the tracking error can be on the upside, it can be on the downside. We've typically seen a lot of tracking error on the upside with Brandywine, but there have been periods where they have underperformed. As we look at the weekly, or well, I'm going to call it the weekly because it's a mouthful, but as we look at the weekly index, it is the most appropriate proxy for a manager like Brandywine, given the fact that they are opportunistic. We're very comfortable with the fact that we will see deviations in performance. The one thing we've added in our memo, so this is after Stuff's memo, is just the mention of the global aggregate index. We have no issue, and we would actually put it on the table as an option as a secondary benchmark to compare Brandywine against. Between the WICB and the global ag index, having both of those as comparable benchmarks just gives us a sense of how those active bets from Brandywine are panning out. And then, with respect to Brandywine portfolio, they do dabble a little bit in the emerging markets. Global ag has emerging market exposure, whereas the WICB doesn't. So again, by having both benchmarks, we feel that it would be a good source of attribution as we're looking at performance going forward. So that's really the summary there. No issues with the benchmark. This is a good manager. And again, I think the subject of tracking error has come up from time to time. It's very explainable given the concentrated nature of the Brandywine portfolio.
If we look at them against both indexes, how would it do?
So over the long term, so if we take like a 10-year period, for example, it's going to be a wash. The WICB and the global ag index essentially approximate each other the longer you go out. But over the short term, there should be a little bit more deviation, particularly with emerging markets rallying and developed markets being a little left behind, particularly with the dollar weakening a little bit. So over the short term, we could see a little bit more deviation between the two benchmarks, the ag and the WICB, but over the long term, they do approximate each other.
I was asking you a simple question. How does Brandywine do compared?
Oh, they do very well versus the ag. They do very well versus the WICB. Against both indices, you will see a good amount of tracking against both indices, again, because it's the opportunistic nature of the strategy. They're not the benchmark of it. That's the
Benchmark what you say. Tiger.
Yes.
In this space.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions?
So the original issue was what they would pull away from the original
They're tracking our
investment policy.
So they're in line with the policy, but
No, they're tracking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, Mr. Carroll, let's do this. I think if we go into the performance report, You can actually look at that numbers, and I think that will hopefully drive home some of the talking points pretty well. So I think it's under exhibit 4 for me. Yeah. Okay. So under exhibit 4, let's see the page number, but I'm going to work off Brandywine's numbers as an example. For the month of March, they were up 4.2%. The benchmark was up 3.8%. Since inception, they're up 4.4%, and the benchmark is up 0.8%. So the tracking error has actually been really, really good. They're significantly above the benchmark. So what we're really doing is just explaining that the WIGBY index isn't like, they're not gaming the system, they're not using an inappropriate benchmark. This is in fact a very appropriate benchmark, and the active bets that they've been making against the benchmark have worked really, really well for them. So at the end of the day, the tracking error that they have, we're very comfortable with that. We feel that they held up very well relative to the WIGBY index. And really, as we think about periods of performance where Brandywine could underperform or outperform, the addition of a secondary benchmark can give us a little bit more explanatory power. But at the end of the day, we're very comfortable and are still recommending that WIGBY remains the primary benchmark. We don't recommend changing that. And the reasons for the deviation, of course, is that WIGBY, we're fully comfortable with the reasons for that. Because active bets made by the manager will lead to deviations in return because of the index. Tyrone, anything else?
No. Any other questions? No, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Just turning to performance for the month, fund was up 1%, 3 basis points behind the benchmark fees. I would note, given the amount of cash that the fund is holding relative to the revenue recognition policy payment that we received, I think the cash adjusted benchmark becomes particularly important. You'll see that cash adjusted benchmark is actually a little bit lower, 1.2. Over 3 months, the fund against the cash adjusted benchmark is in line, 3.7 to 3.7. And fiscal year to date, nearly even at the cash adjusted benchmark being around 5.0. Keep the remarks brief. There are a few, kind of important events I think that are affecting the market. Down, a little bit in the last few days. Last I looked up this morning. Obviously, the debt ceiling continues to be a real, and I know we talked about that at some length at some point at staff and Marquette. I think we're more worried about this year than in years past. The House did, I think by 2 votes, pass a bill yesterday that's been described by the President and the Senate as dead on arrival. But
opening offer,
it would indicate that some negotiation is likely to take place in order to resolve that issue. Had that bill not passed, I might have a different view. Inflation and the pace of rate hikes, there still seems to be by the Fed, there still seems to be a large disconnect between what the market is anticipating, what the Fed is saying. The Fed is indicating one more rate hike and then probably holding steady for a while. Market seems to be pricing in rate cuts as soon as the end of the year. So if you look at what the Fed's saying as opposed to what the yield curve is suggesting, they're not lining up.
So the market was surprised when you said those words.
It could be, yeah, for sure. Continued concerns about recession and the cooling economy. We're seeing the layoffs continue, and not just at the FANG companies or the tech stocks. You're seeing it at companies like Ernst & Young, Whole Foods, Disney, and then just this morning, I think actually while we've been in the meeting, there was an unexpected drop in pending home sales, first time since November. That was a surprise to folks. And then real estate again continues to be a concern around even office demand, and I think there's a cooling off at least in my mind, in multifamily, I think, with interest rates and housing prices were moving up, you could get away with larger rent increases. I think that's kind of starting to contract. I think consumers are tapped out. And I'm not sure that multifamily managers or firms rather are going to be able to continue to raise rents kind of funding. No actionable concerns with managers. I know, I responded offline, or staff has a few questions about various managers, no concerns. We have, the first sleeve of the RRP money that we discussed at the last meeting was invested. We are planning early next week to invest another $45 million. That will get 3 fixed income managers. I think that was highlighted. We continue to keep you updated and answer any questions as the 2-quarter period. That's it. I don't know if you have a specific manager or marketing comments.
Just super high level on the markets, and I'll point to the executive summary. If you don't have access to it, really, I'm just pointing to an index page, and the goal here is to this is page 4 of the executive summary, and this shows the first quarter returns to the market. And really, the goal here is just to, again, just kind of bring to life the fact that the market and the real economy are not necessarily two of the same things. So as we see here for the first quarter, the stock market, S&P 500 up 7.5, international markets up 7.3, the Bloomberg up 3%. So all across the board, all of the indices are up, right? But one of the things that the market is perhaps warning us of, in spite of these good returns, are on page 22. So to kind of bring things to home and not give us too much in that, page 22 takes us to the yield curve. And as we know, the Fed has been very aggressive in terms of raising interest rates. There is an expectation for a 25 basis point rate hike taking place next month. And if you look at the yield curve, there's a pretty meaningful inversion at the 2 and 10 year maturity. Why do I mention 2 and 10 year? Typically, the 2 and 10 year inversion has been a very good predictor for recessionary or economic slowdown pressures. So the point here is, while the market is doing really, really well, it's signaling 2 very different things to us. It's signaling on one hand, equities are doing well, fixed income is doing well, but it's also signaling that the real economy is going to be going through a lot of pain. So the takeaway here is for 2023, we typically do not need guarantees at this table, but I think the one guarantee is volatility. We're definitely going to see a lot of volatility in 2023. We just mentioned the debt ceiling. So unfortunately, for this debt ceiling game of chicken, the market is doing pretty well. So no one has really gotten the hint that this is serious and this could lead to debt downgrades and so on. There's the contagion from the banking sector. There's the Fed, and I'll say this as a student of economics. If you're going after a lagged indicator, but you're aggressively raising a leading indicator to go off that lagged indicator, there's a big probability that you're going to overshoot. And we're juggling a lot of downside types of events happening in light of that action and in light of the precarious position that the economy is in. So the market's doing well, but let's be cautious in our celebrations, and let's just buckle up for more volatility in the marketplace. So I guess on that rosy note, that's the summary from this end.
About to stop for celebration.
So we can celebrate, but with one item.
Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned something at the beginning, you were talking about your concerns about fixed income versus projects. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, so we've been talking with Tyrone about it. Staff meets regularly, formally every quarter, but more regularly than that with managers. One of the concerns, and I've also spoken at some length with Jackie about this in the Treasurer's office. We're starting to hear anecdotally that managers, particularly who manage short-term fixed income or cash type accounts, overnight accounts, that they're starting to pare back or be very concerned about any U.S. Treasury bonds that mature in June to September. So they're starting to avoid those or price in additional risk with the idea that if there is a prolonged game of chicken or heaven forbid an actual default, that some of those bonds may not get paid right away or that people may not assign as much value to them. Doesn't seem to be, affecting the managers as much like a Garcia or a Longfellow, folks that manage a little bit further out. But it's something like for the cash account here or any managers that have short-term exposure that we're following up pretty closely with and seeing how they're position. So you're definitely seeing some folks, particularly on the shorter duration, start to get very concerned about what can happen in the next 16 weeks.
Chris, are there any concerns or problems on the market? Has their reports been impacted by the regional bank?
It has. So we quite honestly, it would have been a surprise if they had been up over the last couple of months. We've talked to Fred multiple times at Elizabeth Park. And I think Fran and some others may have sent around or seen an article about Moody's downgrading 11 regional banks recently. Of those 11 banks, Elizabeth Park only held 3. One they were already selling out of, one they still continue to believe strongly in, and the third one they were actually short. So that would actually be a good position. I think there's a lot still left to be determined, Nick, not just for them, but for regional banks in general. Again, First Republic, I believe, was rallying this morning, but as an example, but over the last few days has lost a lot of value. And they seem to be saying that they're going to continue their soldier on as a bank. Investors aren't so sure about that. And I think there's a lot of underlying concern, again, depending on how you interpret the data, with how much real estate and interest rate exposure certain banks have. Again, depending on how you interpret that data, some folks are getting increasingly concerned that over time you could continue to see some bank problems. We have confidence in Fred and certain that team. They've struggled in the past. This board, I think, in the past was prudent, didn't make any decisions in terms of terminating them or downsizing them, and the board was rewarded for that patience. So I would continue to recommend this.
Your long-term data, so what's the growth there?
And if you remember, right around the time, I think correctly, a couple years back, I don't remember the exact date, this board, I think, was correctly asking a lot of questions, expressing a lot of concern. That was right around at the trough. And had the board made a decision at that time to sell, we would have locked in some significant losses. This board was patient with that manager. It's a fairly small position, and they were rewarded by a large uptick over the next 18 months to 2 years. And at least at this point, everything I'm seeing and reading and hearing, I will continue to advise patients with that particular.
Any other questions?
Sure. Just briefly on the staff report, I did want to. She was at jury duty, but she was excused. We have a new hire, new addition to the investment team. I wanted to introduce Crystal Daniels, data analyst and operations officer. She's been working very closely with Tristan and the rest of the team. She's about 3 decades of banking experience, give or take.
So a rookie.
Yeah. Brings a lot of experience on analyzing, interpreting data and reports. She's got a welcome addition to the team. Securities lending income for the month, $138,670, $396,502 year to date. 52.3 million since the program began. Diverse and local AUM. I did want to note, while the percentages dropped, that is solely because of the addition of the RRP money to cash. As you can see, from December to March, assets rose $700 million. That obviously has the effect of diluting the remaining managers. As that RRP money is invested, those percentages take back up. So on a combined basis, 54.6% diverse managers broken out by themselves, 48.3, and just under 9.2% for local and surrounding counties. Lastly, the upcoming board meetings, May 25th, June 22nd, and then the last one, July 27th. I believe there was some discussion. Diana noted that the law department CLE is that week. I believe the NASP.
This will be one of the courses.
Yes. And I believe the NASP National Conference is also Philly that week.
And it was earlier that week.
24th to 26th, maybe.
Yes.
So that presented some, challenges depending on who was going to attend, along with the law department CLE. So there was discussion about perhaps moving that meeting.
And the main meeting, is on the hill of the Secrets. So actually, it's Secrets Conference, we're gonna take it. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's Secrets from the 19th to the 24th.
Yes. Sounds right.
Right.
May 21st.
So it's over before the board meeting?
Yeah, over the day, the day other board meetings will not be flying back.
Got it.
Right, so, can we move that to 31st? Oh, we got something to do?
Memorial Day.
Well, what day is 29th?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the holiday?
Yeah, I'm done. Not for me.
No, I'm just saying that.
I'll just put it out there, it's Memorial
Would
Day.
it be hard to do it on a Friday or a Thursday?
Well,
On the, or no, I guess then we're going into Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Weekend.
Right.
Right, that's what I
We have
said.
meetings.
I mean, all go to New Orleans, I think that's what I hear.
I don't wanna, I mean, sometimes pushing before is kind of rushing staff, I think, but.
Yeah, so maybe push it back a week. That works for everybody.
June first. June first.
Yeah. Or-
And then do we then want to make it a month in June?
And when the other one was June for the, July.
July. Perhaps we look at the 31st or August 1st.
July, when?
31st or August 1st.
So what's the date of the, national, the
NAPS is.
The 24th,
The 24th,
25th.
the 26th, I think, of July. yeah.
right,
And then the CLE
And then
is
the
the
CLE is
26th.
27th.
right. We want to do it that Friday, is that the 28th, is that bad? Or,
Oh, sorry.
You know,
The CLE is right.
Actually, I'm on
The
vacation.
CLE is 2 days, 27th and 20th.
We do the 26th.
we can,
That's that next conference.
but we can because it's in Philadelphia, so I mean, the board, I go with it, I'll go with
You
it.
can make an appearance, Carol.
Yeah.
Does that work good
On
for
the
you guys?
26th. I also don't know what the agenda is.
That work for everybody else?
Yes. That's
Yeah,
for me.
26th.
Okay.
And June 1st for the May meeting, is that where we landed?
July 6th.
June first.
The 26th.
Maybe move to June 1.
The main meeting is moved to June 1st.
The next
First meeting was June 1st. And then we'll still have one on the 22nd, I guess.
Okay. We'll send a revised.
I think,
Do you want to do a
send
vote
out
in
an
December?
email.
Yeah, we'll send out.
We'll send an email with all the dates and then people can respond. Say, okay, that's right, I thought that works.
So this one more question. Do you want to do May, June combined at the one time for this? Let it go?
Fine with me.
The 22nd is okay, or instead of having two different dates?
I guess the question is, what
Can
kind of
we
stuff
do
do
it?
you want us to cover?
Huh?
Is that, I mean, it's Chris, whether that's a problem based on what he wants to cover.
Well, we could combine in May if we just want to have it in June meeting. We're targeting a Friday. Recommendation, but that would be impacted, so we could just combine.
Right, we're doing something in that.
Right,
Mentioned
yeah.
So we did that.
Sure.
There's no.
Sure. So we'll do June 22nd and July 26th. That's where we line up. Okay,
You gonna be here?
and that's it.
And then no changes.
That's the regular board meeting.
No,
You
ma'am.
gonna be here?
No, man.
That's the regular board meeting.
Are we all good with that?
Yeah, but you was, Chris still wants it out there.
Yeah.
I'll send that to the staff.
December, June 22nd.
So, any new business? The old business, then you probably second your return. Go into the full board. Now, is there a motion to accept the action taken by the committee?
So, moved.
A second.
We probably seconded, I will call roll. Diana, Ryan, Vanessa, Martha, Nick, Rosabelle, Paul, Carol,